Mr. Viking One. How you doing, my brother?
Hanging in there. I mean,
hanging in there.
A couple of days more until I'm out of the quarantine. Haircut and all that stuff. It's rough. It's rough.
What's the temperature like there? Look at you in your string vest.
Temperature is actually okay. I mean, it's a usual like 30 odd degrees, but it's a humidity that is killing me.
Oh man, it's all good. It's all good, man. At least it's warm. Could have been cold. Could have been cold.
Could have been cold, and that's why I left London.
Yeah. So, listen, our guest today is I would call him an educator. He's known for other things, which he's probably known for in the martial arts world as a commentator and presenter, etc. But I'd like to call him more of an educator, which is, I think, is post our conversation, probably fits the bill a little bit more. Yes, it suits the bill, man. So it's Mr. Stewart Fulton, who lives in Japan. We talk about the Japanese culture in relation to ongoing things that are happening at the present moment around the rest of the world, and also we speak about education. And one of the points which I wish we actually expanded on a little bit more, but is to do with the pros of education from the Japanese point of view and the Japanese system that we can absolutely benefit from, and responsibility. So our guest, Mr. Stewart Fulton. Cool, we are recording. So welcome, Mr. Stewart. How you doing, brother?
Good to see you. Thanks for having me on.
No, that's cool, man. How's life been in Japan during the quarantine? First and foremost, let's talk about that.
Yeah, well, quite unique here because, first and foremost, because of the laws. It was
there a formal lockdown? I don't think there was a formal lockdown, was there? Yeah.
No, it was declared a state of emergency. And because there's no law in place to basically announce and uphold a lockdown here, it's seen as a breach of human rights. So basically it was called a soft lockdown, but they called it a self-restraint period. So basically it was like, just behave yourselves and, stay at home as much as you can, wash your hands as much as possible, wear masks. Those last two things Japanese do all the time anyway. So it's actually been a bit of from my perspective anyway, a bit of a breeze.
Mm-hmm. From what I know of the little I've been to Japan, it's like kind of staying at home and staying in the environment, and it's kind of a bit of the norm. So
the only thing, it really only affected the office culture here. You're expected to show up at the office even if you're sick normally. So that because of that culture, they didn't really have teleworking systems in place the way they should have, compared to other countries anyway that have been using those as tools on and off.
Yeah.
So that was lacking. They had to quickly adjust to, actually using video platforms and conferencing from home and stuff. That took a big hit because the trains are such a big thing here. Everybody takes trains. The network of trains and subways is huge. It's a massive part of the machine that is Tokyo and every city really here.
Nice. Tell me. I don't want to jump too much back and forth, but that's one of the things I actually wanted to touch upon. We're going to go back about how you came to Japan and all that stuff later, but the working culture in Japan with regards to the office and stuff like that, because I can't remember who pointed. Was it you, Viking, when we were in Tokyo, and you pointed out to me about how guys just work so hard, and that's their thing. And you know, I think you pointed out to me these guys sleeping on the train and stuff like that. You know, like a massive thing. Try to
see them pass out in the streets, and
yeah.
see that many a times.
Yeah, the number of people I've seen asleep on their feet on the train is just beyond words. I mean, incredible. Just working themselves into the ground. Overtime, unpaid overtime with some of the companies. That's changing a little bit now, but just what's expected of the company comes first, family comes second, you know. I mean, they even have a word in Japanese for death by overwork. I mean, we don't have that. In English, you have to explain it. You know, he died from overwork. In Japanese, they have a one word for it, karoshi.
Oh wow! Wow!
So that, you know, when it gets linguistical, you can see the depth of it.
Yeah. Oh wow! So listen, explain to me about your journey from Scotland. Whereabouts in Scotland are you from, and from there to Japan?
Right, yeah, I grew up in Stirling, which is the central region, the gateway to the Highlands, as they call it. The Battle of Bannockburn, you know, William Wallace. I went to Wallace High School. So, you know, there's a lot of history there. Scalping the English and sending them back home, you know. So that was where I grew up, and then I moved to Edinburgh to
that's
study.
That's where my hair went.
No, you see, this is actually great. It's grey, mate. This is actually grey. It's not a bald patch, it's grey. This runs in the family. My dad's got one on his arm.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, that's genetics. Where were we there? Stirling, yeah. So then I moved to Edinburgh, studied there, and that's where my martial arts journey started, basically, in Edinburgh. Studied.
Just very quickly, how was it studying in Stirling and going to your school and stuff like that? And what type of studies did you do with regards to actually, you know, Scottish history and stuff like that? Did you do a lot of that in school?
Nah, I mean, there's the education's pretty standard in high school. You know, you learn about the wars. You know, the past World War, the World Wars. But what we learn about Scotland, most of what I know about Scotland is from visiting different places, different castles, different visitor centres around Scotland, and actually, you know, taking tours and learning about what went on in those areas and in the country in general when it went through all the, you know, the turmoil of the wars that I'm talking about with William Wallace, Robert Burns, Robert the Bruce. So yeah, most of what I know is from that, not from school, from travelling around Scotland.
Oh, interesting. So so far ahead, your martial arts journey. Rick
Young's Black Belt Academy in Edinburgh. Started there. Started with some JKD and Muay Thai, and Eric Paulson was over periodically, so learned a bit of catch wrestling, and I really only did about a month of gi work before I came out to Japan, so I hadn't done a whole lot of grappling really before I came to Japan.
Okay, why did you have what was the purpose of the move from Scotland to Japan?
Well, I knew I wanted to work abroad. I wanted to teach abroad, and I spoke to my career advisor at university, and he said, well, if you want to go here, this is what you do. I was thinking about Spain, but it was him that said there's opportunities in Japan. How about that? And just the light bulb lit up.
Oh, nice.
Immediately.
What is it that you're teaching?
So I started teaching English, basically, and I teach mostly academic English now for university students, you know, 18 to 22. So that's still a job I have, my bread and butter, so to speak. Nice.
That's cool, man. So go ahead, man. Tell me about Japan.
Japan.
Yeah, when when you landed there, man? Was it a culture shock?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, I'd been to Saudi Arabia early in the 80s when I was a kid. But you don't really get that much culture shock when you're a kid. You know, everything's new and amazing anyway, you know?
Yeah.
So when I came out here, you know, I was 24 and so different. I mean, as a kid, I travelled all over Europe with my family, you know. My dad was an alpine climber and I did skiing and snowboarding in the Alps and stuff like that. But that level of foreign experience is not the same as coming way out to Japan, because even in Asia, Japan is very unique. I think you'd agree, Viking, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's just everything from as soon as you get as soon as you get outside the airport, the signs are all in Japanese, you know. A lot of it's changed now. There's a lot of bilingual stuff and bilingual announcements on the train, but when I got here, everything was in Japanese pretty much, you know. You had
Have you been to Japan before that point?
No, it was the first time.
Oh, God.
Fresh off the boat. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And how did that link up to? Because I read somewhere in the report that you started to jump on like a full-time career as a MMA or maybe they'll call it Vale Tudo career. How did that come about?
Right. Well, I was very lucky to meet Nobuhiko Takada early. I mean, just within a few months of arriving here, a friend of a friend knew him. Were you looking up for training already? Yeah, well, I was actually looking to get private lessons from Sakuraba, but after speaking to him, you know, he said he doesn't do that. He doesn't do private lessons. But why do you not come along to the dojo and take a physical test? And if you pass, you'll get in. So I had to go through the process of that. Horrible test, but that was 2001. So by summer 2001, which was a blazing hot summer, it was like the hottest summer in 80 years or something here. And here's me, this Scottish lad, sweating my balls off, you know, just absolutely flopping around and getting owned, you know, in the gym completely with very little grappling skills. But that was where it started, basically. 2001. So 2002, I won an amateur tournament, and that gave me a pro license. And I joined a team with Genki Sudo, which actually had several names over the course of a couple of years. But that was another fantastic encounter, and training with him and the guys. And first professional fight was in 2003 through to 2010. So it was kind of on and off with injuries and stuff. It's not really a career to talk about, you know, 10 or so fights. But great experience. It opened up loads of doors, and I met loads of great people, you know, as you do through the martial arts.
For sure. How was the training back then? Because you trained in both Scotland and in Tokyo. Was there any difference there that you find, a culture especially?
Yeah, huge difference. Well, especially Takara Dojo then, because Takara-san takes his roots are basically from the sumo, which is passed through to the pro wrestling culture. And it's very old school, very strict. A lot of overtraining, to be honest. A lot of crazy stuff, you know. Neck bridges for 3 minutes with somebody kicking you at the same time. Just, you know, stuff that it will make you, you know, it will make you a tougher person, but doesn't necessarily make you a great fighter. You know, you get pick up a lot of injuries and get a lot of damage. So yeah, that training was really old school. There's not too many places do it like that now, fortunately. But for me, I got my ass absolutely handed to me. I mean, can you imagine 500 squats, 50 squat jumps, 300 sit-ups, 200 push-ups, and a bunch of other stuff? Then Sakuraba comes in, the timer goes on, 5 minutes, 30-second intervals for 12 15 rounds, and there's nothing you can do. You're just a mess.
Yeah.
It's back to back, and then you've got to excuse yourself, go and get all the gear washed and get lunch ready for them coming back to the eating room.
What, you were serving them lunch?
Yeah, we did all the kohai, all the juniors. We got to cook, we got to wash all their clothes, we got to cook, clean, everything. Yeah, that's how you pay your way. You get to eat as much as you like. Excellent food. 24/7. There's no restrictions on that. And we're talking like steaks, anything you want, absolutely anything. But you got to look after the place. Yeah.
I think that's a concept quite alien to the Western culture.
Yeah.
It's I'll never wash a gi, Jude. Sorry.
I've seen the way you wash your keys, mate. I'm quite happy you're not. I'm fine, thank you. I'm fine, thanks. All right, okay, man. Cool. So, how did you find that experience with regards to actually? Well, you're married now and stuff like that, etc. And how have you got the kids?
Yep, 2 kids, 9 and 11. Yeah, they're fantastic. They're both absolutely amazing. Landed on my feet. Superb kids. Cannot ask for anything better.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. They train at all?
I've tried to get them in. My son likes to hit the pads, but he doesn't want to join a class. My daughter, I took her to a kids jiu-jitsu, a BJJ class, and she wanted to join, but she's got no time because she does singing, dancing, acting, piano, and all kinds of stuff. Wow. So, she wants to grapple, and she's tough, but he wants to. He wants to strike the pads. He wants to do the focus mitts.
That's cool, man. That's cool. Yeah. Why did you stop your MMA career?
Well, second kid on the way, wasn't making much money. I never did it for the money, anyway.
You can't do MMA for money.
Nah.
You got to do it for the money. The money comes, man. The money comes, but it's like, the first thing has got to be the love of it and the passion for you. For it.
Yeah.
How was it for the other guys, like even the local guys, the full-time fighters? How was it for them? Is it sort of the same scenario, or are they working another job at the same time?
Pretty much, yeah. Some of them had full-time jobs. Some of them had part-time jobs. Some of them, obviously, they taught martial arts at respective gyms so they could get by. Almost nobody was really full-time. That just wasn't an option for a lot of those guys.
I think that the scenario is the same globally, though. It's like it's not a fighting in general is not a full-time thing until you reach a certain level in your career, and then you can take it on. But before that, in any combat sport, probably in most sports, it's not a full-time thing unless unless the platform is there to support that. Whether government support it or whatever. With funding, but it's definitely not a full-time thing. But I think it's what makes probably combat sports a little bit more unique with regards to the perseverance that you have to go through in order to get to that level. You have to have something a little bit extra, something a little bit more special to just pass all those barriers and get through the going to the office 9 to 5, coming back training, doing your runs in the morning, training before you go to work, training at lunchtime and stuff like that, and then still performing to that type of level, without the sleep and the 2 kids.
The only difference now is nowadays there's more opportunities, so I guess that's the only difference. There's more chances for guys to make a go of it. 20 years ago, when I started, it was very few and far between. The choice, especially in Europe, out here was a little bit different, but it's there's a lot more opportunities now, so it's great. It's great to see a lot more talent, a lot more young fighters coming up and into it.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Tell me about Pancras and what you do for them and stuff.
Right.
How you got into the commentary position, announcing position.
Yeah. That was quite interesting. 2015 summer, I was back in Scotland, and I heard about the job through Lenny Hart, a good friend of mine, and I thought, yeah, this is great. I've got to chase this down. So when I came back to Japan, I wrote a letter to the CEO, Mr. Sakai, just explaining who I am and why I should be doing this job, you know. And I got to sit down with him, and he offered me the job on the spot. So that was that was the end of 2015, and they'd only done a pilot, I think, and one other broadcast maybe at the time. So Pancras 271 was my start, and that was it from there. And at the deep end, live on UFC Fight Pass. The difficult thing really was the added pressure of doing the in-cage interviews. I'd be on the broadcast, and I'd have to come off when somebody won, and run up into the cage and start thinking about which questions to ask, how to translate them and make it flow, so that the audience there can understand the Japanese and everybody watching the broadcast can understand the English. So there was a lot of a lot of pressure there, and it was quite funny sometimes when I look back. I'm standing there with a Russian fighter, can't speak a lick of English. I'm asking the question in English, then in Japanese. The translator asks him in Russian. It comes back into Japanese, back to me, which I relay in English. So I'm pretty sure there's a few things, a few nuances lost in translation along the way there. But we tried our best to get it out.
Well, that's tough. That's tough. If it's just one language to another, but to three, that's.
Yeah, and you don't get another shot at it. It's live. You get one shot, and that's it.
So how are you finding it? Are you getting kind of like more involved with regards to the processes of the TV kind of production side of it and stuff like that? Or
I've learned loads. I translate
how much is the truck shouting at you through the earpiece?
Right. No. Actually, the assistant director and the director are fantastic to work with. It's just great, and for the most part, they trust me. So they're just like, do your thing, So I just get on with it. But it's fascinating. Learned a lot, and been able to get involved in other stuff as well. Press releases, interviews. It's great. Yeah, it's a huge learning process, but it's as is everything,
Yeah. I think it's just looking at the different types of commentators and presenters and stuff like that. I think it's one of those, and I call it an art because everybody's different. It's very unique to each individual and how you guys actually lay across the information, to the public, and get the best out of the fighters after they've fought and stuff. It's because interviewing somebody who's just gone through that experience, they've, unless they're expecting it, if they're not kind of expecting it or not prepared for it themselves, then it's being able to just kind of like tap into it, and you can see sometimes with you guys it's like, go on, just say something interesting. I'm trying to get it out of you. Go on, give it to Mike. But it's good, It's good. It's quite a unique skill, and that your personality has really come over a lot because it has to. You have to try to drag it out from them. So
yeah. It's like a little puzzle every time. I think that the easiest way to approach it is just to simplify it as much as possible. Don't overthink it and try to go too deep. Because those, especially post-fight in-cage interviews, they're pretty superficial for the most part, unless the fighter wants and can give the insight into the action a little bit more. But otherwise, you just got to roll with what you're given. Like you said, everybody's a little bit different, and all the fighters have different emotions and different feelings sometimes.
Yeah. Thank God for replays that you can actually tap into. Absolutely. How did you find a quintet?
Quintet, yeah, that's amazing. I absolutely love Quintet from the bottom of my heart, and I can't wait to do another one. Everything, of course, has been put on hold recently, but once that kicks off again, it's going to be fantastic. Quintet's a lot of fun. Viking can tell you himself. He's seen it firsthand, and he's watched subsequent shows. I'd imagine it's a ride. It's a roller coaster ride. It tells a story.
Yeah,
it's probably the best run or grappling, in terms of like showmanship and all else, and entertainment levels. The level of entertainment, that's probably right up there, I would say.
I think it's number one.
Yeah, it's unlike anything experience.
I really like what Sakuraba's done with his own concept there, and making it more accessible to the viewers, setting up the rules for the audience, not for the fighters, and just making it fun. It's serious business, as you know, but it's a lot of fun, and that comes across, I think, because it's the brainchild of Sakuraba, and he's a big kid, he never grew up. He loves to do that, and he loves to show it, and the world loves him for it.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. He's made the brand has gone bigger, not bigger than him, but it's separate from him, which is really good. And it just goes to show that it's an entertaining product on its own. And it's for me it's probably one of the best or the most entertaining grappling event out there. I can watch it without being bored.
I think from the branding, like even the logo, I don't know, I forgot who told me that. We asked him, why is a logo like this? And you can just see this from that's his character. That was the story, right? Oh, okay. Who's gonna win?
Right. And
that was the logo. It was fucking hilarious.
Down to the last two.
It's a really well-run show. I would definitely want to have another shot. It was one of the worst performances that I've had. It was insane.
I was thinking that, man. It was just the way that played out was terrible.
Mate, you have no idea. The night before the what do you call it, the press. So I was in Kazakhstan, and so they were asking if do you want to join to have a shot at this? Oh, of course I'm going to say yes, but I had to make it from Kazakhstan to Tokyo within 24 hours, and so I basically competed the night before. And then jumped on the plane, an inbound plane to Almaty, and then went to Russia to change for a direct flight to Tokyo. Landed in the morning, went straight to the press, and then we didn't finish till about 7 at night, because I thought I could weigh in and then rest. But then the president at the time, he wanted to branch into China as well. And so then after the whole press thing, I was asked to go for another meeting, and then it went on till at nighttime, and I was completely dead. But yeah, it was fun.
Okay. That's not exactly going in fresh, as they say.
No, I overestimated myself. I thought I could do this, but then after that, I was like, I'm getting old.
You need at least a day leeway.
I thought I could do it. I mean, back in the, when you're a kid, you thought, jump off the flight, let's go.
No problem. Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot of fun though. So much fun.
Yeah. You need some quintet in your life. You do, you definitely do. The amateur events have been taken off here as well. Big turnouts. A lot of teams. A lot of female teams popping up as well. So it's great. Really is great. Yeah, new talent, young kids. 15, 16 coming through. Yeah, going to see a lot of good stuff from that in the coming years, I'd imagine.
Do they have any plans to like branch out to like Europe wide or anything else like that?
Yeah. I mean, it's always been on the cards to do various international locations. So I'm just.
Wait, didn't they do one in Vegas already?
Yeah, there's been a couple in Vegas. I was at the first one, Quintet 3, in Vegas, and then they did another one at the end of last year in Vegas, but that was a little bit different. The Flight Pass changed the branding of it a little bit. I think hopefully this year and onwards, you're going to see the original flavour of the Quintet coming out again.
Nice. So, man.
Right, so let's jump on to something more solemn. I mean, after all the fun stuff, we're all aware of what's happening around the world nowadays with a lot of social issues in regards of like Black Lives Matters, and then white privilege and minorities and stuff. And so, which was why I thought it was a very interesting take to see what are your opinions as a complete opposite scenario where you're the minority in a completely alien Asian culture. So yeah, what's it like living in Japan for the most part as a
well, that's it's a good question, because that's almost 2 decades I've been here now, so I've seen a lot of economical change, social change, and of course I've changed as well in the time I've been here and getting integrated and used to the culture. I mean, well, the topic of racism is a little bit different here because it affects different people in different ways. Well, of course it does anyway, but compared to definitely the States and maybe the UK, here I would say that for the most part, Chinese and Koreans get the shitty end of the stick. Nigerians and Africans, yes. I would also say the same, but first and foremost, it's probably toughest for Koreans and Chinese. As a white European, not so much. Although I'm still always going to be a gaijin, I'm still always going to be an outsider, however long I'm here. I mean, I have permanent residency, but I can't vote. So I'm always kind of kept at a certain arm's length from the bureaucratic workings. The worst instances of discrimination are probably anybody will tell you who's living here from abroad is trying to rent an apartment. Traditionally, it was very, very difficult, and your choices were very limited. The landlords get the final say, of course, and they would often, you'd just be sitting in the agency, and you'd say, well, how about this place, and the agent would have to call the landlord and explain that you're a foreigner, and often they'd be like, no, they don't rent to foreigners at all. So you're denied that kind of access. It's changed a little bit now, and it obviously it helps. It would help me being a university teacher. When they know your job, you get a different level of respect, and it's like, oh, okay, right, that makes things a little bit different, But, as an interesting story, a friend of mine was actually in the real estate agents looking for a place. Same scenario, the agent's calling round. He calls one place. So my friend can only hear one side of the conversation. Once they're in the room, he's a foreigner. No, he's white. And, that's obviously a question. It's a question that the landlords are asking. They're asking, is this person Chinese, Korean, or African? And immediately that changes things, So when you hear countless anecdotes of these things happening, it can be a little bit discouraging. Although, I've been lucky in that respect. Things have changed, I've been able to buy a house in my own name. I own some land. So that would have been much more difficult 20 years ago, nearly impossible. It would probably have to be in the name of, a spouse or whoever it may be that's a national here. But that's a little bit different now. So, there's definitely changes going on. Yeah. I mean, I've got a load of other small stories that I could share, but quite specific, to certain instances. Generally, you don't get treated badly by, people in the street, and the public are generally very courteous. There's only really a few right-wing people that'll shout something or say something, but that's few and far between. The police, however, they can be a little bit, or they have known to be a little bit rough with foreigners. I mean, it's nowhere near the same level of brutality that we've seen over and over again in the States and in the UK also. But I've heard stories also because they have a very draconian approach to law enforcement here. You don't have to be guilty of anything for them to hold you in a cell for 10 days and interrogate you.
Oh wow.
Yeah, you got to be careful.
Wow, that's a bit of a paradox considering the whole human rights thing about lockdown, and then on the flip side of it,
yeah, very, very old school, very, very old. It's something that's just not changed in a long time. It was an old law that was passed, and they haven't not done anything about it yet. But hopefully they will make some kind of reform. Japan's very slow to move with that kind of stuff, but often when they eventually do move, then you do see some meaningful changes.
How do you how does that affect your kids? Because I'm presuming that your wife is Japanese, and so your kids are mixed, of mixed descent. So how does that affect your kids with regards to school and their interactions and stuff like that as well?
Well, again, that's another thing that's changed hugely in the last couple of decades. Obviously, the first 10 years I was here, I heard a lot of cases of they call them half kids. I call them double, but just to annoy them. But that's the word they use in Japanese, half. I'd heard a lot of stories about bullying and whatnot because they were just so rare. You just wouldn't meet that many mixed race kids, but it's just so widespread now, and the attitudes, especially the younger generation, attitudes have changed. So my two have never had any troubles at all at school, not once, absolutely nothing. Maybe their family name, because it's obviously not a Japanese name that stands out, but they're definitely not. They've never been attacked. Nothing's ever been said to them. They've never been bullied psychologically or physically. So there's definitely a lot of big changes in the last 20 years, and it's good now. It's good for them. It's definitely not as bad as it used to be.
Nice.
We've had some. We've had some experience in my family as well, because I spent quite a lot of time in Japan, maybe 10, 15 years ago as well. I was planning to study there before eventually I made the choice to London. But then I also did work placements. I studied I studied the language for a few years, and my uncle actually married a Japanese woman, and they have like my cousin's half Chinese, half Japanese. So one of the developments that I saw over those years was he eventually became a bit resentful for him, I think, being Chinese. And then so they eventually moved from Hong Kong back to Japan. Like, he would refuse to speak Chinese. You know, he refused to go to like a local school. He would only go to the Japanese international school. And then I dug up a little bit more, watching some documentaries on particular like Chinese immigrants back in the day that were in Japan, or the second or third generation of those people. And it just seems like a recurring issue everywhere. You know, it's not in this instant, the skin color is more similar, but you know, the underlying problem, I would say, is still the same. It's just different cultures, and it's quite hard for a kid to try and identify who he is, especially if on the largest scale and you watch on the news, everyone's against each other.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're right. That's a good point about trying to find your identity, because we all go through that anyway as we grow up. You know, regardless of what culture or country we're living in. But when there's that added twist of two cultures or biracial, and moving between countries, the amount of people I've spoken to, especially Japanese, who, you know, they might not even be half Japanese, but they've lived abroad when they were younger and come back here, and they're seen as returnees, and all the problems that they go through trying to fit in because the cultures are so different, you know. The West and the East, America, Japan, or the UK and Japan. There's so many differences. I think it can be really tough for kids, depending on what ages, you know, they're shifting between the two.
Do you have any like obvious examples of, you know, for people that might not been to Japan before, that, you know, would be like an obvious difference?
Well, from a kid's point of view, education, schooling is so very different. Here, you know, for the most part, you're just a cog in the machine. You know, what is it they say? The nail that sticks up gets hammered down. So, you know, speaking up in class, showing any strength of character in front of the group. It takes balls, you know, and a lot of kids get shot down for it, because you're supposed to conform a little bit more here. So, you know, and when you're in the West, it's a little bit more relaxed, and there's a little bit more freedom with expression and stuff, and maybe less pressure to conform to certain groups. But yeah, you know, switching between the two, you know, I've heard of guys that are like, I don't know, in the States, I was like this, and, you know, people were picking on me for this, and then I came back to Japan, and, you know, I had to kind of be quiet and keep quiet about stuff. You know, just trying to find a way is really tough with schooling, just schooling in itself, you know. Never mind making friends and whatnot.
Sure. Oh, interesting. I find sometimes just harking back to that point with regards to Viking. Also, indoctrination has a big part to play to a certain level as well. You know, so like a kid who you know, like in their teens or whatever, depending on what influences them at that particular time, or where they are at that particular time, and when they go to shift to another country, they will take those values that they've actually been basically indoctrinated with to somewhere else, and then find it very difficult because they have to change those values. And I think as adults, we've got to learn to be a little bit more flexible in our kind of little bit more, well, I'm speaking to the converted, but yeah, we kind of got to be a little bit more flexible with regards to our ways of thinking so that we can actually kind of change. And if you don't have that kind of flexibility, it's very hard to, you know, to move forward within whatever society that you're trying to integrate with in the first place. But also that current society as well has to understand you in that same sort of way. And it's kind of the running narrative in these times currently, you know, where, you know, there's loads of issues like that needs to be small issues from the ground up that needs to be kind of like sorted, whether it be your workplace or whether it be, you know, the uncle in your family is a little bit racist that no one's actually even said anything to, you know what I mean? It's like now they've got to go like, listen mate, you know that's wrong, don't you? But nobody's been saying that, and I think everybody's kind of been a little bit complacent, you know. So I don't want to kind of speak out of turn, but a place like, say like Japan, where somebody would say something, you're more inclined to be a bit respectful, not to say anything. Whereas, say when in the West somebody says that, you'd be like, shut the fuck up, man. You don't say that stuff. You know, where over there it might be seemed a little bit disrespectful. So,
yeah,
how you change that narrative or how you change that person's ways of thinking is going to totally depend on the culture that you're in, and you know, you have to find that way of actually saying, hey, you know what you just said isn't good.
Yeah.
You know, and I think then eventually, but it's a long, slow process. And I think with what's happening today is making sure it's at everyone's forefront of everyone's mind that, hey, there are these issues out there. You know, there are these issues that need to be addressed, but they stem from the smaller level. They stem from your household, your workplace, you know, your friends, where you train, and then as it grows and it moves up, then it will change as everybody gets older and the generations build. So hopefully, anyway, that's my that's on my Christmas wish list.
Yeah, you've touched on two important points there. I think, you know, the first one is the dialogue that's just not being had. You know, I mean, I myself have an elderly family member that's you know, blatantly racist and often says stuff, and the family was, you can't say that, you know, but it's just you know, it's been left unchecked for so long, you know, it's been just swept under the rug. That dialogue has never really happened to the level of any kind of meaningful change. Now, the second point you said was also interesting. The irony is that as we get older, we become less flexible. You know, we're less inclined to change our minds about stuff, even in the face of, you know, overwhelming evidence. We tend to, as we get older, we tend to hang on to old beliefs, old ways of thinking, just because they're easy and they're comfortable, and we don't really have to delve deep into any kind of soul searching or think about complex topics. We don't want to do that. We want things to be simple, you know. And you can see that spread across a whole bunch of levels in society, you know, politics, you know, bipartisan politics, this false dichotomy of the left and right, oversimplifies it for everybody. And you know, now you have, when I speak to American friends and I look online and stuff, especially in the US, they seem to wear their political leanings like a badge. You know, it's like, this is my name and I am Republican, or you know, I am this or I am that. And it's just crazy. I mean, why would you wear something like that as some kind of meaningful part of your identity? It's just absolutely crazy, you know. And it spreads into other stuff, you know, this or that, black or white. Are you in this group or that group? You're with us or you're against us. And it's never, I mean, anybody who knows anything about anything knows it's never that simple. You know, there's always a lot more to it when you scratch beneath the surface, you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. One of the overriding factors is poverty. You know, when people's bellies are full, you know, it changes everything. And you know, I think as humankind, we've got a duty to get rid of that stuff, man. There's no reason why so many people should be in poverty, but you know, poverty is also a business. You know, it's clear it's a business. You know, so yeah, that's the one thing that needs to change. But as you said, man, there's so many overriding factors that that need to be addressed so that we actually can kind of like push forward. Will we see it in our generation? Nah, I don't think so. Maybe our kids, maybe our grandchildren, you know, probably would start the curve. But I do think we need to kind of start now. I think it's very important as well that, you know, as human beings, we don't take our foot off the gas as well. It's very easy, you know, it's very easy to kind of like, as soon as our lockdown finishes or whatever, just to kind of, for us to go back to our own kind of routines and be comfortable with the fact that you know, it's just not only racism, it's simple things, you know. It's like your boss might shout at you or talk to you in a particular way that makes you uncomfortable, but you haven't spoken up about it. You know, it's good to kind of address those things just from a smaller level. You know, it's like, hey, listen, I don't like that what you say, or I don't like, you know, whatever. But I think it does start from those small conversations, those small. They're not altercations, but they're conversations and dialogue. You know, because then people know exactly how you feel, and they can respond in a manner that to a level that suits you, and then you can actually have that dialogue. But yeah, stick up for yourself, man. You know, it's important.
It is, man. It really is. Yeah.
Stick up for the little man. Stick up for everybody else. Pick up a fight. I think have to.
Yeah.
Speaking of sticking up, I remembered when I was maybe a teenager, and we were just going for a holiday, my friend, to Tokyo, as you do, you know, like many people from Hong Kong. And one of the things that really stuck out to me, that I realized the culture is completely different, especially the working culture. I saw maybe a girl working in McDonald's, and she might have gotten the order wrong or whatnot. And the manager, the older person, was giving it to her, but not just yelling, and, you know, he was slapping her. And nobody was doing anything in the streets. And it was in Tokyo, like, you know, 15 years ago. And I didn't understand why no one did anything but she was really apologetic, like, you know, with her shoulders slouched and head down and just taking it. You know, it's, there are certain things that, you know, other people's culture that you'll never understand unless you're there.
Yeah. I've had a couple of shockers as well along those lines, you know, and it boils down to just what people accept as normal. And you put that hand in hand with not wanting to get involved in other people's business, especially domestic affairs. And you've just got a recipe for repetition. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. I was on a train station platform standing next to a family who looked like they'd actually come back from a funeral or something. So they were wearing black or that kind of vibe, I'm not sure. The daughter was early 20s, I guess. And the dad gets angry and he starts punching her. He's punching the daughter in public, in the head, in the face. And I'm standing right next to him like, is this really happening? You know? And I'm quite acquainted with violence. I don't like it, but, you know, I'm reasonably enough acquainted with it. It doesn't shock me, you know, and I would normally react to something like that in any other context, but I just couldn't believe I was seeing a father do this to his young adult daughter. And what really struck me, this will blow you away. What really struck me was that the wife, the mother, she said to their husband, "Stop it! It's embarrassing."
Oh, wow!
And I was like, "Embarrassing?" It's your first reaction to that. Jesus. So I don't know how much time elapsed. It wasn't that long because, you know, I generally don't keep very quiet about things that happen in front of me that I don't agree with. So I walked up to the guy. I said, "You got to stop that. You know, that's not cool at all." And he took one look at me and chewed his gum and was like, "Right, okay." And he stopped. But I could just tell when they got on the train that she was going to get it home, you know, later. It's just, I'd only really stopped it temporarily. And I was really, really shook by that.
That's crazy.
That should not be accepted, you know, and but, you know, it's a very patriarchal society here, and, you know, often the men get away with domestic violence, as they do in many countries, but here, especially with the law enforcement, they tend not to get involved in it at all unless it's extreme, but sometimes it goes beyond that, you know.
Wow. Could it that be like, because it is so kind of like high pressured, or it's just become a normal factor to turn a blind eye to certain things like that? I use the example of like how, say like in the UK now, I was having this conversation a little while ago, how whereas before, you know, if I put my feet on a seat on a train as a kid, some old dear would come up and go, "Oh, you get your feet off the seats." And now I'm on a train and I see kids putting their feet on the seats and nobody says nothing, and I'm like, "Oi, get your feet off the seats." And they look at me and go, "Yeah," and get your feet off the seats, and then they do it. Yeah. But it's like it's you know, people are scared to have those conversations we were talking about before and challenge those ideals. So then people get used to doing that and without being challenged. You know. Yeah. So yeah. That's Oh mate. Yeah.
Brutal. Yeah, when things become accepted and people turn a blind eye, that's when you have, you know, the problem that we have now, you know, that's hitting the international news is police brutality. I mean, it's been going unchecked for too long, and that conversation needs to happen, and there needs to be huge structural changes. Massive changes. There's no quick fix to this one.
How's it been reported in Japan? Out of interest.
Well, they had the riots, of course, have been on the news, but the NHK, the broadcaster, the terrestrial broadcaster here, which is very conservative. They have a show called The World Today, and they ran a segment last week on the.
I have that here.
Did you see the video?
No, I haven't. But we have that channel here.
They made this little video, a minute and 20 seconds, showing why the riots, or trying to show why the riots were happening, and it missed the mark so badly that they got a ton of complaints and they pulled it.
Oh wow!
I should drop you the video after the chat here. It's just ridiculous. I mean, talk about stereotypes of African Americans. Just brutal. You know? It makes you wonder who was in charge of that and who didn't check that before it went out. You know, it was. I mean, it's not racist per se because there was no malice intent. You know, it's not like a right wing propaganda thing, but it's so. There's so many prejudices hanging in it. It's just it's cringeworthy, man.
Yeah, and I think that is very much part of the problem. That, you know, with regard to the stereotypes and prejudices, and everybody kind of reacts and reports on those. You know, like for instance, you know, the statistics are those, like, you know, it's less than 1% of people are looting. Even, you know. So, but that seems to be the focus on everything. The violence, everything is focused on that rather than the overriding element, which is actually the protest and the protest for change.
Exactly.
I think our media have a hell of a lot to to answer for with regards to everything. Even down to the way they report the virus. It's sensationalizing things. You have to dig far and wide to find truth now, which is really crazy, huh?
Yeah. Considering the fact that we have the internet and there's a ton of information out there, but sifting through it is a full-time job. It's just so hard to differentiate between reliable sources and stuff that is has some half truths. It looks kind of okay, and then the other end of the scale is just complete propaganda bollocks.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I think it's not something that is actually just like unique to the West or to Europe or whatever. It's like globally. Because I think just the various news agencies need to have eyeballs watching them for advertising. That kind of needs to change. Yeah, it totally is. Even like a reputable news source or so-called reputable news source like the BBC, sometimes the headlines that they've put out in the last year, you just have to question like why. You have no reason to. Your income doesn't depend on advertising per se, but you should not. You definitely should not be putting out those. It just ruins your reputation. Fully.
I hate it when I get clickbait and I clicked on it and I read and then it's not what it. I'm like, damn it got me again.
Yeah,
it's totally true. It's
true what they say, man. Money talks and bullshit runs a marathon.
Yeah. I can't remember. It was something, a meme that was out, and I'm paraphrasing now, and I'm going to do this so badly, but it's more to the point of like, 2020. In order to find the real news, you have to click on Instagram account that is Juanita's big tits, just to see like what's happening in your local area, but it's true. It's like it's getting to that point where actually where in order to see and understand like what's really happening out there, you actually have to go and click on like Instagram accounts of people that actually are there. I remember with the Hong Kong riots, and Viking was, he highlighted this very well to me when I was over there last year, and it was about I think we were watching on CNN or something, innit? And then you showed me a video of actually what it was like, and so you got it had the beginnings of it, and you had a very few protesters on one side, you had a few police on the other side, and then you have loads of media in between, like the camera's like whoa, diving all over the place, and you think like World War III was like literally kicking off at that time when before it kind of escalated so bad, but I do believe like it's almost like a life imitating art imitates life, that little circle where people start to think that it's a lot worse than it is, so it becomes a lot worse than it is, and then it creates that massive circle. So we need to check ourselves with regards to actually how much we intake, and then also how much we spew out from that. What you tell your kids about stuff, what you speak to your relatives and your friends about stuff, because it's a sounding board. Boom, boom.
Yeah. Everything affects the other.
Oh, no, absolutely, mate.
Well, jumping back to something more cheerful. What's your favorite?
Stick to this point.
What's your favorite thing about Japan?
Favorite thing? Oh, there's so many, but the first one that springs to mind is the food. It's just so varied. There's so many options here. It's massive. For people that haven't been to Japan, you'll know a few, traditional Japanese dishes or whatnot, but when you're actually here, oh man, you can eat something different, a different kind of dish every day for months on end. You never overlap. Love that a lot.
The food is amazing.
Yeah, the food is that's definitely one thing. Convenience is another thing. In Japan, convenience is king. That's. I mean, from my window, I can see a vending machine that sells alcohol. And I mean, just the very concept of a machine unmanned standing outside in Scotland with alcohol in it. Just no, it's not happening. It's not happening, But it just shows you, you can have good things if you behave yourselves, So that's the other one. Convenience. Martial arts. Yeah, I got to throw that in there. Love that about Japan. It's just so deeply rooted, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's nice.
I think it's very difficult for people who haven't been exposed to maybe Southeastern Asian, like metropolitan cities, the culture, to understand what you're talking about, convenience, because the setup of the city and things you have access to is just so different. Like maybe 2 years ago when I go to China, I'm already paying with my phone. They've been doing it for a long time, right? Last year I've been, you don't even need the phone. They have something that scans your face and and that connects to your bank account. Regardless of whatever issues that come with that is amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing. It's something that they can do, or maybe they can test out the system, and I find a lot of that in Japan as well. It's always seen as growing up as a kid in Hong Kong. Japan's like the wonderland, the technology. It's one of my favorite cities to visit, to explore, and it's I would suggest everyone to visit at least once in their life.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's so unique. It's worth it. Yeah.
One of the things that I'd love to do, actually, because my daughter wants to do it, being a teenager now, but is to travel I think a friend of mine did it with his daughter. A friend of mine I work with did it with his daughter. Is just take I think you can buy a round trip ticket on the trains, and it will take you on a bullet train to this place, that place, for like about a week or so, and to come back. It's one of the trips that I actually have to do, actually.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that'd be fascinating. You'd absolutely love that. Yeah, it's like going to another world.
Oh, it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I think we've come to almost the hour mark, and what we usually do with our guests is we have this good vibe minute, just a minute of something you would like to say to a guest or advice for people who are listening nowadays. So.
Oh wow! Yeah. What do I want to say? Just on any of the topics we covered today.
Anything you want to say?
Yeah.
Really.
Being a teacher as well, mate.
Good to this world.
Well, to take that lens on it, to take the education lens on it, I really do think that the crux of it is education. You can do so much from the ground up with education, but you can't just say education and it magically happens in the schools. I mean, you have to take on approaches like Finland and countries that are way advanced with their education systems. It has to start from there. That's how societies change, at home and in the schools. And that's one thing I've noticed raising my kids here. I mean, they'll fight at home, they'll go a bit crazy, they'll let off some steam, but in public they behave for the most part. We don't get screaming tantrums or any kind of nonsense in public. They know how to behave themselves in society, and being wary of everybody around them. That's a very strong concept in Japanese education and society in general. I think it's got to start from education and looking at a more. I mean, I'm not saying every country should adopt a style of education like Japan. I mean, there's plenty of holes in the system here that I could point out, but nowhere is perfect, But on a worldwide basis, it used to be that only the elite could have access to higher education. And now it's still not accessible to everybody, you know, and there's a lot of poor people who can't get a good education, but it is way more accessible for kids to go into higher education and have access to academic structures and systems and conversations. This is where it starts. I mean, forget safe spaces and all that kind of shit. I mean, I'm talking about real, difficult to discuss topics, and teaching kids how to use logic and think and rethink and reevaluate their opinions and ideas on stuff. There has to be a more widespread, higher level of initiation into rational discourse. Mm-hmm. You just need to look on the internet, the comment threads on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. The vast majority of people, they don't know how to handle themselves. They get all emotional and just start calling each other names, you know, like that. If more kids come through a system where they start to understand rational discourse, they start to become more aware of their confirmation biases, then you start to create a more well-rounded, self-reflecting society. I mean, it's not going to make everything perfect. You're still going to have people that don't want to conform, don't give a shit, that do their own thing, but you're going to have a lot more people going into different job sectors who can have adult conversations, you know, and actually work towards solving problems. You know, this whole thing of opinions, you know, the amount of people I see on the internet, it's like, well, that's my opinion. That's I'm allowed to have my opinion. Well, yes, you are, but your opinion is not necessarily equal to somebody who is learned on the topic that you're trying to school everyone on. You know, yeah. When kids become used to this ongoing discourse, the fact that you can't, when you jump into a conversation, if you don't know anything or very little about it, you really can't say too much that has any weight. Only when you get involved in the cyclical affair of discourse, whether it be academic or not, any kind of issues, then you become more able to solve problems in your head and with other people.
Yeah. Have you read that book, The Coddling of the American Mind?
No, I haven't. No, but it sounds
touches
interesting.
on that. Yeah. It touches on that. It's very, 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 very so much touches on that.
Right.
So just one question before you go, because I know we hit the hour mark. What would you take?
Yeah, I'm getting hungry.
I know, but just this one question.
Sure.
Because you're an educator, and I'm so sad we actually haven't spoken more about this. But what would you take from the education system in Japan that will benefit us, like here in Europe or etc.? You know, just on certain things.
Taking responsibility. The older kids take responsibility for the young kids. All the kids take responsibility for cleaning the school, cleaning up after school lunches. There's no lunch halls, you know. They eat in the rooms, so everything has to get. Everybody has to work together, and you've got to take responsibility for stuff. And if you don't, you start to fall down the ladder. You know. That's a huge thing I notice here, for sure.
That's a big one. That's a really big one, actually. That's a really big one. It's a good
that
system.
also means they have to care a lot more about others, like other people,
yes.
How they affect other people other than themselves.
Yeah,
that's
I mean, the flip side of that is, yes, yeah. I mean, obviously, the flip side of that is, holding back on saying something that might destroy or unbalance the harmony of the group, and that can create other problems, communication problems down the line. But definitely having a more awareness of those around you, not putting your feet on the chairs, taking your shoes off whenever you go in, to
Yeah.
any house, anywhere. Basic stuff, you know. Consideration for others.
Nice. Okay, my man. Listen, that was awesome. I just thought, brilliant. There we go. We're back in. That was brilliant, man. That was brilliant. Listen, Stuart, man. Thank you very, very much. Thanks for your time and your insight. That's good.
Hopefully, we'll see you soon.
Yes, some more Quintet action. Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. It's been great chatting with you.
It's a very nice conversation. Thank you.